This is not only a top book of 2023, this is a new favourite book of all time. Hello my loves, and thank you for joining me. It's Kirsten, and today we're talking about my favourite book from 2023. I love doing these videos. I love looking back on the year and picking out all of my favourite reads and just remembering how good they were. It's been a good year, to be fair. I think overall I have had a grand old time with the books that I have read. There has been a few disappointments and stuff, but I don't really like doing disappointment. Like, I like watching other people's disappointing books of the year, but I don't like doing it because I'm like, I don't want to remember the disappointments I've had. I want to focus on the positive. So anyway, that's what we're doing. I have a few honourable mentions that I want to talk about, and then we're going to get into the top 10 of 2023. The first honorary mention is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I loved this book. I actually binged the whole trilogy inside 1 month. I was having a fabulous time. I read it on Kindle. It was on Kindle Unlimited and I had so much fun with it. I went into this one with low expectations because I was reading it because I just wanted something easy to read. I didn't think I was going to love it. For some reason, I'd built it in my head that I'm just like, oh, it's just young adult, it's going to be tropey, it's not really going to be worth it, and all of this. And it is tropey, and it is young adult. But it's so good. I absolutely loved it. I had a great time. The Folk of the Air trilogy is basically about this girl who is a human called Jude, and she lives inside the fairy world, and it is really dark and really grim and dangerous. Like, Holly Black does draw on a lot of the original darker folklore about the fae and how difficult it is and how you've really got to be careful, and the way you've got to word things is a dangerous place. And I loved it. I thought it was really good. It's a really slow burn enemies to lovers romance across the whole trilogy, but it's also about Jude trying to navigate things, doing the politics of it all. It was to the point where I even read the novella about Jude's sister, and I also read How the King of the Elfheim Learned to Hate stories, which is an illustrated book. Like, I really want to get these as physical copies for my shelves. I don't actually have the space at the minute, but as soon as I get more space, I'm definitely going to get those books. Like, I have a list of books that I would like physical copies of, and this whole trilogy, everything to do with it, is one of those. Like, I'm really, really excited to get hold of them, and just, they're really good. Then another book that really surprised me is Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. Again, this is something I read on Kindle Unlimited. Again, because I wanted something that was just going to be a really easy time. I didn't expect to like this, but I haven't stopped thinking about this series. I actually binge read the first 4 books in this series. The 5th book is going to be coming out in 2024. By the time you're seeing this, it is 2024, but it's going to be coming out, I think, in February time. I'm really looking forward to getting the 5th book. The way it all ended, it was just so good. And this is just a messy contemporary romance. We're following Magnolia Parks. She is very well off, and she has this on again, off again sort of relationship with someone that she was in a relationship for many, many years, and then things happened and it all kind of fell apart, and it's so toxic now and it's absolute mess. It is rich people drama, but it's so good. I really enjoyed it. And can I say that this is good writing? No, but it's a book and series that has just stuck in my brain, and I want to continue on with it, and I had a great time. So yeah, this gets an honourable mention. I think because it was just so surprising for me, and it shows me that maybe contemporary stuff and like reading things that I don't think I'm going to like is worth giving a try, because like with this one and The Cruel Prince, it's paid off and I've really enjoyed it. Another honourable mention is Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte. I really enjoyed this. I did a daily vlog where I was just romanticising my life, and I read this book for it. It doesn't have a lot going on. We're following this governess, Agnes, and she really struggles because she's going into this house and she realises how difficult a position being a governess is, because you're not really a part of the other servants, but you're not a part of the upper society that's hired you to teach children. You also have the difficulty of trying to teach the children but unable to set boundaries and rules because the parents don't want that. So it's a really hard thing to navigate, and this was just following Agnes's life as she deals with all of this, the reason why she becomes a governess and the difficulties that she faces, and she's also got love and loss and this, and it's just really, really lovely. It's only a short book, but it was just beautiful, and it was exactly what I needed for that day. It might not be the best thing that I've read this year, but it was really nice, and I have such fond memories attached to it because of the day that I took that was just really slow and lovely, and I just had a great time with it. We also have A Marvellous Light by Freya Marske. I really enjoyed this book. This was really fun. This is a historical fantasy romance. It's great. I loved it. It was funny at times. It was just perfect. Like, it was so good. Like, I loved the setting. I believe it's set in Edwardian times. Don't quote me on that. But we're following Robin, who is a baronet, and he needs to get a job because his family's not doing well, and he gets this job within the government, except it's a part that's to do with magic, and he didn't even know magic existed, and it's a bit like, wait, what's going on? And he ends up working with Edwin, who is somebody that's then got to teach him about all of the magic and stuff, albeit very reluctantly, and you start seeing their romance blossom, but you also get caught up in this magical high stakes plot thing that's going on as well, and it's just great. I really enjoyed this. I loved the setting, I loved the romance, I enjoyed the fantasy elements of this and how it all tied together. I think it's a really good series. I mean, I need to read the second book, but I thought it was really good. I really, really enjoyed this. I can see why it's been recommended, and I picked this one up because of different recommendations of people talking about it, and I thought I'm going to give this a try, and I'm really pleased I did. I had really good fun with it. And the final honorary mention is The Goblin Emperor by Catherine Addison, and this one was a gift from Naomi, so thank you so much, Naomi. This was brilliant. I really liked this. This is like a cozy fantasy. There is not much going on. It's very slow. We're following this new Goblin Emperor who was never expected to become Emperor, but his family all die. There's something happens, all his family dies, and he now becomes Emperor, and he's got to try and learn the politics and navigate things, but he's not prepared for this. He has been someone that's been shipped off to one little corner and kept away from everything, never expected to have to actually do anything to do with the Empire. He's got to try and navigate his way in all of this, and that's all it is. But it's really good, and I really enjoy it, and I do think about this book because I enjoyed kind of like the comforting vibes. Like, there are darker things that happen, but it never feels that dark or feels that high stakes at all. It just feels like a nice laid back cozy time. It worked really well. I really enjoyed this one. That's the last of my honorary mentions, and now let's get into the top 10. And these are done in no particular order. So the first one I want to talk about is Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. I loved this book. I read it on Kindle. I definitely need to get a physical copy of this book again when I've got more space. This was a fantastic book. It's one that started off a love for horror in a way that I've not had before. So I have always been someone that I'm happy to dabble in mysteries, in thrillers, so like the dark academia side of thrillers. Horrors for me, I have never fully got into, and I've always felt that it's just not quite my genre unless they are retellings of horror classics. So horror classics I can read because they're not really horrifying, it's more gothic than anything else, and I've always been of the assumption like I can I can read a retelling of that and that's fine, but that's about as far into the horror genre as I go. And then I read this and I was blown away. I absolutely loved it. It was just so well done. So this one is about killer mermaids, actually. So we're following a group of people that are trying to investigate what happened prior, because there was a original team that were going out to document the Marine Trench, and it was going to be a spoof documentary of mermaids, but they never came back. Like, the vessel was empty, like the ship that they were on was completely empty, they didn't know what happened, and some of the footage that was leaked was kind of terrifying. And so now, years later, they are sending another expedition to find out what happened to this ship, what happened, like what was going on, and then you find out the truth. And I really liked it. It was a really good blend of science and horror, the ocean involved. It was just done really well. I really enjoyed the way it was done. I liked the different characters that we had. I just think it was done perfectly. I really liked the build up of all the tension and everything that was going on, and it has opened up the start of a genre. So some of these books in this pile, you're going to hear me talking about how this started off a realization that I really like this type of book, and there have been other books that I have read that fall under this category that I've really enjoyed, but I wanted to highlight the first one that did that, and Into the Drowning Deep is what started me off on oceanic horror and just trying out different horror books and giving it a try. I can read some horror books, not the really like gory ones for the sake of being gory, but Into the Drowning Deep hit the nail on the head of exactly what I was looking for. Oh my gosh. Then we have Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice, and this is not only a top book of 2023, this is a new favourite book of all time. I adored this book. It is absolutely fantastic. I annotated this one to death. I had such a good time with it. The writing is exquisite. It is so good. This one, we are following someone that is interviewing a vampire, Lewis, who gets turned into a vampire by a vampire called Lestat, and you are seeing his journey. It takes place over centuries because obviously vampires are immortal, and it's so well done. I had an amazing time with this book. I have a very extensive annotating key. We had quotes that I love, talks about relationships and the different intricacies within relationships, not just romance but familial ties as well. It was quite toxic at times, but it was a really good look at it. And then we also had a tab for death and passion and drink and blood, because it was all tied in together. Like, there is nothing better than to be able to drink blood and feel someone's life force for a vampire. And then we had discussions on morality, and also a tab for social commentary, and then of course references to Dracula. This was everything that I wanted this book to be. It was phenomenal. I adored reading it. I definitely want to continue on with the series. I know that when I reread this book, I can definitely do some more annotating, which sounds insane because of how annotated this is, but there is this whole part about Claudia that I definitely want to explore when I reread this one, and have separate tabs just for her as a character, and the way that the relationship with her and Lewis was explored, and just the different things that Claudia deals with. Like, it is so good. Don't get me wrong, it is a darker book, but it's fantastic. And yeah, like I say, it's a brand new favourite book ever, not just of this year. It was so good, and I really want to reread it now. It's just so beautiful. The writing is amazing, so I'm very much going to be getting the next book in the series, going to be giving that one a try, and we're gonna see. I think this is actually quite a long series, and I have heard that the rest of the books don't always live up to it. I've heard conflicting things about the second book. Some people say that the Vampire Lestat was their favourite, and some people say it's Interview with the Vampire that was the best, so I'm really intrigued to give that one a try. I loved this. This is a new favourite. 10 out of 10. It was so good. Highly recommend. Then we have the most intimidating book that was sat on my TBR for absolutely ages, which is Ken Follett's Pillars of the Earth. I really enjoyed this one. The title for this is kind of rubbed off, but it's a second-hand book. This was really good. Absolutely massive, but so well done. I really enjoyed it. This was recommended to me by quite a few people, and then we ended up doing a buddy read over on Discord for this book over the course of a couple months because of how big this is. And this is a look at, it's a historical fiction, and we're looking at the role the church plays in everything that was going on back in this time, because it is set, oh, I can't remember actually, and it's not on the back. Oh, okay, it says 1123 is the prologue set, and then we move forward in time a wee little bit. This book does take place over years, and I loved it. I think it was really good. It is really dark. There is a lot of horrible things that happens in this book, but the overall premise is how building this cathedral takes the worst out of people. Like, it brings the worst out in people, I should say. The way it can corrupt people into wanting things for selfish means, the way it can impact the village and town that it surrounds, how the infighting happens and the horrible impacts that has on other people. Like, it is a really dark book, but it's got so much to comment on about society, and I loved it. I thought it was really, really well done. Was it a bit repetitive? Like, yes, because it felt like we just kept going around in cycles of like something would happen, we'd retaliate, and then things would settle down, and then the same thing would happen all over again. But that's kind of like life. Like, life is very cyclical in nature. I really enjoyed this one. I think it was really well done, and for something that I was really intimidated by and was like, I'm going to keep putting this off forever, I'm really pleased that that buddy read really pushed me to actually read this one, and I enjoyed it so much. Like, I think about it quite a lot. So yeah, really worth it. But there are some despicable characters in here, and you really just want them to die. Like, you've had enough of them. There are some very vivid sexual assault scenes, so just go into that bearing all of that in mind. Like, it is quite a vivid book, like it's not gonna gloss over things. It was a good book at the same time. I then have Far From the Madden Crowd by Thomas Hardy. Again, I annotated this one. Thomas Hardy, after this book, has kind of cemented himself as a classic author I really enjoy reading. Like, probably one of my favourite classic authors. This is the second book that I've read of his, and I fell in love with it. I love his writing style. I love the way he depicts nature and the English countryside, comments on society, women's standing in society. This one is definitely more light-hearted compared to Tess of the D'Urbervilles. We're following Bathsheba, and she is a proud woman. She is running her farm herself and refuses to marry somebody else. She's like, I can do this all for myself. But she ends up in this kind of like love triangle that's going on, and you're seeing how way that society wants her to be and how that can weigh on her. Again, quite an extensive tabbing system. We had tabs for quotes I love, which is always the generic one I use, but then we had tabs for nature, funny moments, and funny descriptions. Like, the way Thomas Hardy does his descriptions of his characters, hilarious. Absolutely loved it. Then we have sadness, despair, and depression. It is a Thomas Hardy book. You are going to get moments of, well, extreme despair. And then the final one is commentary on women's standing in society. It's just really good. I really enjoyed it. Definitely want to read more Thomas Hardy, and would love to read more than just one. I think I've read one per year at the minute, so I would really like to maybe read 2 next year. I do have, or this year I should say, do have a couple on my TBR, so I do need to get to those. But that was a really good book. I really enjoyed it, and it just kind of reminded me why I like reading classics so much. I didn't read loads of classics this year, but that book is definitely one of the top ones I read out of that, and it was just a really good time. Then we have another book that I didn't think I was going to love, and it's The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana, and I loved this. So again, this is a Kindle read, and then I went to Yelp and saw this on a table that was like, if you buy 3, you're basically getting one of them for free. How can I say no to that? This was really good. This is a romance. It's kind of like fantasy romance. We're following Mika Moon is a witch, and she has been putting out YouTube videos on her being a witch, but it's YouTube, so no one really believes that it's real until one day that somebody does, and she gets an invitation to go to this house and teach these 3 young witches how to control their magic, which she doesn't think is real because witches aren't meant to be together in that way. And so ensues this beautiful story. It is so good. We have a grumpy sunshine relationship going on, which was so much fun, and then we have Mika trying to find her space in the world and try and find out who she is, and I really liked it because Mika's 30, so it was really easy to connect to her as a character, and I knew and said in the vlog that this is going to be a book that I can easily reread and annotate because of how much I got out of it, and I never thought I would. Like, very much when people are talking about it, I'm like, oh, it sounds cute, but you know, it's not really my cup of tea. I'm definitely more of a darker reader with a bit of like cozy lightness every so often. But this just came at the perfect time. It was exactly what I needed. I really loved it, and I didn't think I would because it's more romance heavy, but it worked, and I think it was really good, and it's kind of opened me up to maybe I'm more of a romance reader than what I thought, which you would think that I would know that because I do always love a good romance in a book if it's done well. I just prefer if the romance is kind of like the subplot. You know, apparently I'm changing my tune because some of my favourite books and like my honorary mentions, all of them were a lot of romance, so this was good. This was a great time. Then we have a book that again is kind of starting off this like subgenre that I'm really loving, and this is Finley Donovan is Killing It, also gifted to me by Naomi, so thank you so much. This was brilliant. I tabbed this so much. I had so much fun with this. So we're following Finley Donovan. Finley Donovan is divorcing her husband. She's having a hard time, like she's trying to look after these young kids. Her writing, like she's an author, but her career isn't doing that well, like nothing's going well. And then she's in this meeting with her editor. They went to a coffee shop and she was talking about how she just feels really bored because she keeps killing people off in the same way and she just needs something different because she is a murder mystery writer. But somebody overhears this and mistakenly thinks that Finley is a hit woman and then leaves a little note on the table with the person's name and the amount of money. And it all goes from there. I had great fun with this. It was fantastic, and it started off this kind of like comedy-esque books that again I didn't think I would really like, but I have, and it started off a few of them. I've got a couple more that honestly were a grand old time. You've got Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers, which was fantastic. You've also got The Stranger Times. Both of those are books that fit into this category, and it was so good. I have loved all of them, but as I said, I was going to be talking about the book that started that love, which is Finley Donovan. I had such a good time with this one. I was tabbing funny moments and I ran out of tabs. It was that good. I laughed out loud at so many points. I've got tabbing system, only 4, but funny moments, like I said, ran out of the tab. Fantastic. Then we've got quotes I like, as always, and then everything to do with murder, and then how it looks like she is framing them. Out of context, that doesn't give you a lot, but it worked really well for this. I just had a great time. It was so funny. It was fantastic. So yeah, loved this so much. Do need to carry on with the second one. Again, I've heard mixed things about the second book, but I enjoyed this one so much I really want to give it a try. Definitely need to read that. Obviously, I would highly recommend all of these books. That's why they're in this video, but it was really good. If you need a fun time, take that one. It was good. Another classic that I did enjoy is L'Adore by Mary Shelley. So Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein. That's the work that she is the most known for, but Mary Shelley also wrote a lot of other books, and I've made it my mission to start reading some of those other books, and this year it was L'Adore. I really enjoyed this one. So this one is actually a more of a romance-based book. It was so good though. I really enjoyed it. It's still melancholy because it's Mary Shelley and she does write quite depressing work, but this one was really interesting. We're following these 3 women, and 3 women who are all connected together in different ways. And the way this was written was really well done. I didn't annotate it. I wish I did. Can do that on reread. But you start off following this one woman, and then you're learning about her life and the things that are going on. And then when they interact with the next person, you then change perspectives to the next woman and you get their backstory. And then you build up from where you then just left off with these 2 women meeting, and the story goes on but from her perspective. And the same thing happens again, and by the end of the book everything's coming together. I actually really enjoyed that way of doing the story. It's not something I've seen that often, and I just thought it worked really, really well. This one is just, it's good. It's got sad moments in it, but it is looking at love in different ways, miscommunication, the different things that can impact life and the relationship. So 2 of the women that we follow, one is someone who married Lord L'Adore. She wasn't happy in this relationship at all, but she married him, and you start learning why that all happened, how she felt about it, how it was her mother getting involved that turned the relationship toxic, and any chance of happiness that they had was ruined because of her mother. And then she had a daughter, and that's the other perspective that we get, is of the daughter's perspective, who the dad takes away, and they move to America to live together away from the mother, and how that all impacts things. And then the final girl that we get is the daughter of Lord L'Adore's childhood friend, and how she gets involved with everything. I really enjoyed this. I think it was really well done. Would highly recommend if you like Jane Austen. Obviously it's more sad than Jane Austen, but if you do like Jane Austen, then I would give L'Adore a try. It was really well done. Oh my god. Okay, so then we have a book that I read at the start of the year that I have adored, and that is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. This is so good. I'm currently reading, at the time of filming this, the second book, Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands, because I got my copy early, which was amazing. But yeah, this is so good. I loved this. So this is light academia. We are following Emily, and Emily's putting together this Encyclopedia of Fairies, as you can tell from the title. So it's set in our world, but in, what year is this set in? 1909. Our world, but fairies exist and they are an acknowledged part of the world. And she goes to Cambridge University. She's a professor at Cambridge University and she teaches about fairies, but she is working on this project to create an encyclopedia, the first comprehensive encyclopedia that documents all the different varieties of fairy that are out there. And part of this, she has ended up in a, I think, is it Nordic village? It's snowy, it's set in winter time, it is cold, and she goes to this village in search of this elusive type of fae, and once she's documented that, her encyclopedia is done. However, when she gets there, she kind of puts the wrong impression across to the villagers. She doesn't get on with them very well. She's just not very good at interacting with people. And then comes in her academic, I wouldn't say rival, but definitely like he's a counterpart where she finds him a little bit irritating and annoying, and that is Professor Bumblebee. Wendell Bumblebee is so lovely. I love him as a character, but he is everything Emily isn't. He is charming, he is able to woo the villagers and get them to really work with him, and she's really frustrated because she's like, well, why is this? And he kind of teaches her, and they realise that working together they can really help each other. It's just so good. I loved it. I loved the exploration of the folk and the fairies and everything. I think that was done really, really well. I loved the relationship between Emily and Wendell. It was really good fun to follow. Like, it was really, really good. One of my favourite books, again, probably of all time. This was so good. I absolutely loved it, and so far I am equally loving the Map of the Otherlands. It's so good. So yeah, loved this. Almost at the end, we have Engines of Empire by R.S. Ford. This is a gift from Naomi again, so thank you so much. I loved this. I devoured this book. It was so good. This is a fantasy book series where I read the second book in the series this year as well that had just come out, and I'm desperately anticipating the third one. I don't know when it's coming out. There's no dates anywhere. This was brilliant. I really, really enjoyed this. This was what I was looking for. So fantasy books, I do always enjoy fantasy books, and so far this year I have found a lot of light, more fun fantasy books, which I do like to break up my reading. However, I like the darker, grittier, epic fantasy that you can really sink your teeth into, and I haven't found loads of those this year. But this was one of them. This was fantastic. We are following a few different characters. You get different perspectives, but they're all part of this same family that live inside this empire, and they are part of the Hawkspurs Guild. There are different guilds within the society, and they have been kind of taking over places. They want to colonize different places, and you're seeing that. So you get some perspectives that are within the empire, you get some perspectives that where they're branching out and trying to take over these other places, and you're seeing how wrong it is and how actually maybe we should have worked together with these people rather than demonizing them and going, well, we must go to war against these people because that's what they're like. And we haven't taken the time to even get to know them or even try any treaties or anything. I really liked this. It is dark, but it's so good. It was so good. I really want to reread the first and second one in time for the third one, whenever that does come out. I do keep looking. So yeah, this was just brilliant. But let me do the back so that you get a bit more of an explanation, because I do find with epic fantasy, it's hard to summarize for me. So I'm just going to read the back for you. So we're following the nation of Torwin, is run on the power of industry, and industry is run by guilds. It is kind of like almost steampunk in a way. So chief among them are the Hawkspurs, whose responsibility it is to keep the gears of the empire turning. That's exactly why matriarch Rosamund Hawkspur sends each of her heirs to the far reaches of the nation. Connell, the eldest son, is dispatched to the distant frontier to earn his stripes in the military. It is here that he faces a threat he could never have seen coming, the first rumblings of revolution. Tyretta is a sorceress with the ability to channel the power of Pyrestone, the magical resource that fuels the Empire's machines. She is sent to the mines to learn about how Pyrestone is harvested, but instead she finds the dark horrors of industry that the Empire would prefer to keep hidden. The youngest Foran is a talented artificer and finds himself acting as a guide to a mysterious foreign emissary. Soon after, he is framed for a crime he never committed, a crime that could start a war. As the Hawkspurs grapple with many threats that face the nation within and without, they must finally prove themselves worthy or their empire will fall apart. So already you've got the 4 different perspectives that we're following there. It is really good, it is dark, it's heartbreaking. In the second book I wanted to riot at something that happened. It's really good, absolutely love it. Highly, highly recommend. And again, thank you, Naomi. The final book that is on this list is The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence. This is the Locked Library edition. I love this edition. It is gorgeous. Very beautiful, and this book I really loved. Now, I was in 2 minds as to whether I was going to pick up this book. Like, I was really thinking about it, didn't know it was part of the Locked Library subscription, because Mark Lawrence is an author that I have read one series from and attempted another series and didn't get on with. The first series that I read starts with Grey Sister, and I did enjoy it, but have since unhauled those books because I know I'm not going to reread it, and it was fine. It was a good series, but nothing major. The second one that I tried, which was Prince of Thorns, I really didn't enjoy it. Ended up DNFing that one, so I was unsure. I thought, you know what, maybe I'll give this a try when it comes out in paperback. Then I got this gorgeous edition, and I got it early as well, and I had a whole moment over it because it was absolutely gorgeous getting it early. It was great. And then I read it, and oh my god, this book is so good. It also feels so different to his normal writing. It is beautiful. I really, really loved it. So this one we're following 2 main characters. One who lives out in the Dustlands. Their village gets raided, and then she kind of has to escape to this city that's got really high walls, but when she's there she realizes that everybody looks down on her because she lives out in the dust, and so she's like, but you know, we're people, we are people, and we should be together and band together and stuff. But they're like, no, 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 you live out in the dust, like you're different and all of this. And she realizes that she's always going to be looked down upon. And then our second main character, Eva, he lives inside a library and can't escape this library, and he lives there with his brothers and sisters, and they trying to escape, but there's also different darker things that lives in the library with them that they have to fight against. And you see how these 2 end up coming together, and it's so good. I loved this book so much. I'm really excited for the rest of the series. It is really good. Again, I had quite the extensive tabbing system. So as always, quotes that I love. We then had a tab for anger and hatred, which a lot of that is from Livara because of the way that she's treated because she lived out in the dust. And then we have quotes about books and about writing, which was beautiful because obviously it's all set in a freaking library. Then we have a reference to other books because a lot of books do get talked about in here and different references are made. Then we have a tab for sadness, despair, depression. There are some really sad moments in here. And then we have a separate tab for racism, and then I have a separate tab for theories of what was going on. It was so good. Honestly, this book is... I haven't cried at a book this year, and this was the book that got me the closest to tears. It was so close. It was so good. I absolutely loved it. Loved the ending. Really cannot wait to see where it's going to go from here. And I really loved the way it looked at war, the futility of war, and how it's all just a freaking matter of perspective. And it's just so good. Really, really recommend. Really good book. But I have spoken for absolutely ages, so we're going to leave it there. These are all the top 10 books that I have loved in 2023, plus 5 honorary mentions. Please let me know, have you read any of these? What are your top books of 2023? I would love to know. I'm always on the lookout for more book recommendations. Even though I have a TBR that is freaking endless, I always want to add to it, so please do let me know. Okay, I'm really going to stop talking and I will leave it there. So thank you so much for watching. Again, let me know, what was your top book of 2023 and have you read any of these? I really want to know. If you have made it this far, then let's leave a book stack emoji in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. So if you have enjoyed this video, please do give it that thumbs up, subscribe and comment. Those 3 things really do help this channel grow. My social media links, anyone I've mentioned, will be linked below, and I will of course catch you in the very next video.